Do you ever feel stretched thin at work? Stuck between overworked and underutilized? Do you ever get to the end of what felt like an extremely busy day, but you struggle to put your finger on any truly productive work that actually happened in the process? No doubt we all have. And today's interview welcomes Greg McKeown, author of the million-copy best-selling book Essentialism and the follow-up Effortless to the Catalyst 360 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brad Cooper of Catalyst Coaching 360, and we're grateful to have you join us for this special hidden gem episode of the Catalyst 360 podcast, your trusted resource for engaging, evidence-based health, wellness, and performance insights. This discussion with Greg McKeown reminds us achieving our goals doesn't have to be so hard if, and hopefully when, we're clear about what really matters. We'll dig into that and so much more in the moments to come. One of the things that continues to intrigue me as we begin our 17th year of providing personalized, best-in-class health and wellness coaching on behalf of employers, EAPs, and even wellness providers is this very concept of essentialism. Individuals want to make positive changes. They may even be very clear about what those changes involve. The barrier is clarifying the next step, the essential step on which everything else can then be built. Whether we're talking about physical, emotional, or mental health and well-being, the skills of a nationally board-certified coach can make all the difference. If you'd like to explore ways in which Catalyst Coaching 360 can help those employees you serve move forward in a positive direction, please reach out anytime. Results at catalystcoaching360.com. That's results at catalystcoaching360.com, or head over to the website, catalystcoaching360.com. Now, let's focus our attention on the essentials, learning how to trade simple busyness for real, meaningful progress with Greg McKeown on the latest episode of the Catalyst 360 podcast. Greg McKeown, it is so fun to have you join us on the podcast today. This is one we've been looking forward to for a long time, and it's great to have you.
It's my pleasure to be with you, really. Thank you.
The first thing that kind of cracked me up as I was preparing for this interview is there was so much I wanted to cover. Your book, for me personally, powerful, and I hope our listeners pick up your book because it's just loaded with stuff. But I was trying to think, well, I can't even get to the first question because there's so much I want to cover. Then I'm thinking, wait, Brad, what's the title of the book? It's Essential. Like, seriously, are you kidding me? So let's just do this. Let's go through the 4 key elements that you identify. That's probably a good starting point. That'll lay the groundwork. So I've got them written out here. The first one is essence, the core mindset of an essentialist. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Well, for many people, they already have a non-essentialist mindset. They just don't know that because it's just so normalized. They're just going through life and they don't know that there's a different way to look at life or think about life. And the non-essentialist mindset is an undisciplined pursuit of more. So it's where you basically just think, you have to do everything for everyone. And if you do, you're going to get everything you want, what you've dreamed of. And the big problem with that mindset is that it doesn't fulfill what it promises on the packaging. The essentialist mindset is just, from my point of view, it's just reality. And that is, you can do a few things superbly well. And if you do, you're going to make a higher contribution overall. So that's what I call the disciplined pursuit of less. So it's a mindset that says, look, only a few things are truly essential, and the rest of it, therefore, can either be deprioritized or eliminated altogether. And so it's to see the world, I think, as it really is, which is that almost everything is non-essential.
Right.
And so you have a great advantage if you start to see the world through that lens, because then you can start putting your energies into the things that really matter most.
Can we
essence and mindset of an essentialist?
So incredibly well said. Can we change, or do you either have it or you don't? Am I either living the essentialist lifestyle, or I just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely people can change. One of the most gratifying things of writing Essentialism is how many people have written to me or spoken to me to say that Essentialism has been life-changing. What they mean is that things are different.
Yeah.
The way they see the world is the first key. is just to even be able to see it because of the whole principle of that fish discover water last.
Yes.
We're so consumed in a non-essentialist mindset that just even to become aware of that, to see that we're swimming in a set of assumptions that aren't true, that we've been sold a bill of goods. And just because lots of people have bought into it doesn't make it more true. People believed the world was flat for a long time. It didn't make it true, right, however dominant that assumption was. And so it is with becoming an essentialist. I think it's absolutely possible to make a journey, however non-essentialist you are. I think you can certainly make it 1 or 2 standard deviations closer to it being an essentialist. But I see no real reason that people can't make it the full journey. Even if they were extreme, they could go all the way to becoming a full embodiment of essentialism.
And your next 3 kind of what? Because I wanted to be like, but what do we do? Let's talk it through, because you helped us see what we do. So the first step is to explore, discerning trivial many from the vital few. All yours.
Yes. So to explore what's essential, well, if as soon as you believe that only a few things are essential and that most things are non-essential noise, then it's a natural extension of that mindset that you would start looking for what really matters. If you suddenly discover that you're not in a coal mine as you thought you were your whole life, you've always been in a diamond mine, it will quite naturally, spontaneously be that you start to look for the diamonds.
Yeah.
So the mindset precedes this first practice of essentialism, this first element of essentialism, which is to explore what is essential, what really matters. And I'll give you an example. Just recently, somebody emailed me from England, Joe Davey, and I was so taken with her story that I interviewed her as a guest on the What's Essential podcast. Uh-huh. And so here's her story in a nutshell. She reads the book and she starts asking every day the question, what's the most important thing I can do today? That simple question. It's not in the book, as it turns out, but that was her amalgamation of what, a concrete thing she could start doing. At first, the answers are to do with work. She owns a consultancy and it's to do with that. But over time, the answers changed. The question remained the same, but she started to be clearer about what the diamond was each day. And on one particular day, she gets a call from her dad who says, look, I just want to let you know your mum's in the hospital again. It's nothing serious. Just wanted to, keep you in the loop. No need to come. You've got way too much on your plate, all the rest. So she asks that question that day, and she said, I remember exactly where I was, the weather outside, world stands still. I know clearly the most important thing to do that day is drive 2 hours to the hospital to see my mum, to be with her. So she does that. She gets to see her mum. She says, look, I love you. Everything's going to be okay. Her mother says the same to her. Well, within an hour of that, her mother actually slipped into a coma and never recovered. A week later, she had the unfortunate experience of having to turn off her life support machine. And she was just writing to say, if I hadn't been an essentialist, I would have made a completely different trade-off in that moment. I wouldn't have, how different it could have been.
Right.
And so that's a recent example of what it means to explore. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You just start with that one question, write it up, put it where you see it every day, and just answer the question. Some days it will be obvious. Some days you have to pause for a moment, but it shifts the whole feeling of the day and, of course, the answers you get as well.
Great story, because that guides me down the concept of each day it's different. So essentialism isn't the idea of these are the 3 things, and every day these are the 3 things. Essentialism is, what is it today? Am I hearing that right?
Well, essentialism at first is a mindset, an ism. It's a way of thinking, but the answers clearly change as life changes, as it evolves. And so I think that essentialism is the work of life. It's not one more thing to stuff into our already overstuffed lives. It is a different way of doing everything. And so that's not the only practice of how to explore what's essential, that daily question. I also would encourage people, and myself have other ways to explore, like daily planning, really having generous time to plan. A lot of people aren't doing that.
Right.
A lot of people have heard about the idea, but they really don't do it. And so instead, they just live out of their inbox. It's the last thing they do at night, very, very first thing they do in the morning. And this is running their lives. There's a great risk to doing that. So daily planning is a process that when I do it, it changes my day. When I don't, I can feel that frenetic, frantic sensation. I recommend generous, luxurious weekly review and planning and designing your week instead of letting it happen by default. Just one more final practice for exploration. I recommend holding a personal quarterly offsite where you really have, again, a generous amount of time, as much as you can have. Different phases in your life when the children are young and so on, it might make it really difficult to carve out. I did a sort of essential intervention with somebody recently at an event, a Zoom event. She said that she was struggling to literally even have 5 minutes, not to plan, just to be on her own in a given day. She just literally, you could tell she has 6 children. She's working from home. She's schooling from home. She's trying to do, and she's just burning out, of course. She can't get 5 minutes. So I recognize some of these things will sound realistic or unrealistic based upon people's circumstances, but the benefit of working towards getting a full 2 days every quarter to just reflect and think about the big picture. You can ask that same question, but just writ large. What is the most important, essential mission of my whole life? And to keep coming back to that. I have asked that question many times in my life, and I've been inspired by the answers as those answers become clearer, and as a way to inform what goals to set this quarter, this month, this week, and today.
I love that. Like it calms me down just to even think about 2 days a quarter. And yet I'm also hearing some of our listeners going, you got to be kidding me. Like, yes, that would be great, but I can't get 3 hours a quarter. You know the realities. You've talked to thousands of people about this. You've had that pushback since 2014 when the book came out. What do you say? How do you bring us back? Because I hear you. I love the concept. Stephen Covey got into a lot of that with his book, The 7 Habits, and this idea of planning and preparing and sharpening the saw and those types of things. There's a huge value to it. And yet I'll just raise my hand and say, I do it. And then I fall off so quickly. And yes, the value's there. There's no question. And yet I get caught up in that busyness. So what do you say to those folks that are hearing this and saying, I love the idea, but Greg, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to it. I mean, one of the things I would say to them is it is possible, is just to challenge the assumption that it's not.
Yeah, that's good.
But I also, secondly, would just say, I mean, I've created a 1 Minute Wednesday newsletter specifically to address this. So you can read in 1 minute and a way to apply essentialism this week, on that day. You can read it within 1 minute, literally, and you can also often apply it within 1 minute. So it's a really micro read with a micro action.
Nice.
And I have found now that for we launched that actually. This is interesting. We launched at the same time as the podcast came out. So it's just 4 months ago. So both were brand new. And so I launched it on LinkedIn and also through my website. And so it was on LinkedIn, it was 0. And now it's like it's 17,000, subscribers, and just growing that 1,000 a week. And I've been really delighted to see that, because what's happening is that people are looking forward to it now. That's the correspondence.
Right.
I was late the other day getting it out on Wednesday, but later, and I had is it still coming today?
Right.
So I know the pain that people are describing, even after they say essentialism. I want to be an essentialist. They're living in a non-essentialist country. I don't mean the US, although maybe that would be true too. I just mean the culture is so skewed to the non-essential. And so what I thought might be sufficient with the book, I find is necessary but insufficient. And so there's a whole intent now. The podcast is a weekly thing, drops on Monday, so that you can get that essentialist energy for the week. The 1 Minute Wednesday is another moment with it. I'm just building a whole experience now. The Essentialism Academy, I haven't talked about that really anywhere, but that's coming. There's probably the first phase of it will come out before the end of the year. There's an essential planner that I'm designing that will come out so that people can actually use specific tools daily, weekly, quarterly to try and design their life and take back control of their life from these really dominant forces that are trying to get our attention and trying to take control of our lives and of our time, our precious time. And these are all elements that I now understand better. And to be frank, COVID has given the space to invest in. And I am thrilled about it because I'm sharing a whole variety of pieces of this puzzle, but I just finished a new book as well. And all of these things have one intent around them, which is how do you create an experience where somebody could go from a non-essentialist living in a non-essentialist culture to an essentialist living in an essentialist culture in their family and their work and so on. It's how do you create an experience that somebody can go the entire journey, and that they could do that on their own pace. Of course, they could do it faster. It could take them years, but that there'll be the support to be able to make that whole journey is something that I'm serious about and focused on doing right now.
I'm really happy to hear that. Before I forget, how do they get on that newsletter? Is it gregmckeown.com? What's the best way to reach out to you to get?
Yeah, I mean, everything I'm just building around a hub, essentialism.com.
Essentialism.com.
At time of our conversation just takes you to gregmckeown.com, and that's where they sign up. But that will also be the place where this hub will exist. And it's a long-term investment from my point of view. So it's not this. That's what I think is so exciting about it, actually, is that a book is so frozen in time, and then you don't really get to improve it in any way.
Right.
Even you go and speak and teach. You just do that once and then you're done. But the online academy you just imagine how it can be 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. It will just get better and better. People will give feedback. The community, the Essentialist tribe, which is a very passionate group, will give feedback. They'll say what works, what doesn't work. Right. And so we'll just keep improving it until this thing is just, best in class.
Well, I think that's so important. I read your book last year, fell in love with it, was trying to apply some of it, and then I pulled it back out a month ago as I was preparing for this interview. And I got to the end and I literally texted a buddy and said, hey, we're doing this interview with Greg. Would you want to, have you read it? He said, yeah. I said, would you want to do some accountability on some of this stuff over the next, because that's what was needed. So I'm glad to hear that you're putting some of those things out. So people are not having to initiate that internally. You'll have a resource for them. So I love that.
And I don't mean to be pushing this, but it is my genuine passion about this. The Essentialism paperback, not the version that you have that you told me about, but the official news paperback will come out the last week of December.
Okay.
And there'll be a code in there. In every book, each book will have a code for access to a 21-day Essentialism challenge.
Okay. Perfect.
They'll have 21 videos that will help them each day, 1 minute to listen to, 1 minute to apply. And the first one, and this it's your fault. You remind me of it, which is the very first thing you do is you find an accountability partner who's going to do it with you.
Awesome.
And that's day one. You just got to find someone, invite them to do it, and then you're off to the races.
Right. Beautiful. That's beautiful. All right. We got off track a little bit. Let's jump into step 2. This is eliminate, cut out the trivial many. So we've discerned what they are, and now the next step is to cut some of those out. Talk us through that process.
I just think you have to start with the extremes. So in step 1, what you're looking for is the 90% and above important. And that's what essential means, is the very important. And to make sure you know what they are, because often they don't make it onto your to-do list in the first place. And so the efficiency, productivity altar won't help you with that. You could efficiently be doing the wrong things. You could be productively doing stuff that's only 50% important or 40%. And then, I mean, step two, what you really want to start with, the low-hanging fruit, is cutting out the total trivia, the non-essentials that you're over-investing in. And so maybe just literally asking people, if someone listening to this can just take 1 minute and they can just set a timer, 1 minute. What are the things that they are essential for them that they're under-investing in? And everybody has something. Most of us have many things. So you're looking for the things that are 10% or below important, and start there. You don't have to start with, well, how would I negotiate priority? What the priority is with my boss's boss. Right now, how will I figure out with my spouse what the most whether I should do what they want me to do or not to do? Well, yeah, you can start there. That's jugular stuff. That's tougher negotiation conversations. They're challenging. Or you can start with the trivial stuff that you have total control over, that you're still investing in. Start there, reclaim some of that space, reclaim that part of your life, make it a little harder to be on Instagram 14 to 18 hours a week, as literally someone I coached was spending. And I mean, he had almost a part-time job checking Instagram.
Wow.
So, and what he wanted to be doing was building his business. And that's what we did. We just gave his password to his spouse, and for the next week he couldn't be on there. And instead he had to build his strategic plan for his business, which he did. That's the idea. Trade-off. You're trading off something non-essential for something that's essential at the extremes. And it's a great trade-off. If you can get to the extremes, you never regret that. That they become quite obvious that you should be willing to do it once you write them down. And that's really the idea of eliminate, is not prioritize and then still try to do everything. Figure out what matters and then get rid of the rest if you can. Yeah. And at least explore whether you should have that stuff in your life anymore.
Good reemphasis. I don't think I picked that up. Eliminate. It's very clear. It's not shift. It's not save it. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a challenge to do it, to say it, to do it. It challenges people's assumptions. What's essential? Eliminate everything else.
Yeah.
But it should, and I hope gives people permission to just question things that before, well, I have to. Said it to our son. We'd put him in baseball season, and we just regretted it almost immediately. And we hadn't started the season yet, but we just suddenly looking at it, just going, oh my goodness, it's going to be 3 to 4 months of just all these extra things.
Oh, yeah.
Or in a full life, we have 4 children, and full life. And we said, well, we have to do it. And the problem with the phrase "I have to do it" is that it ends all conversation. It's just I have to, period. It's now we feel obliged and we've got to try and do it. If you change your language to look, I choose to do it because if I don't, this thing happens. Fill in the blank. Even if you just keep the same language, I have to do it because, but you just fill in the blank. Now you've got a hypothesis you can test. Well, I have to have Jack. I have to do the season with Jack because if I don't, he'll be really disappointed. Well, I can test that. Right. You can't test that. I have to, period.
Right.
So
in a discussion.
Jack, come in here. Yeah, exactly. Jack, come in here. We're thinking about not doing the baseball season. How do you feel about that? Oh, that'd be fine, Dad. No problem. Nothing.
You got thousands of parents right now listening going, oh, where were you 6 months ago?
Well, so that was 4 months return of time, energy, money too, for all of us involved for something we assumed was really important to him actually wasn't. Of course, it could have been that when we asked him, he could have said, this is like the most important thing. It's highly valuable. But then you're making your decision with better information rather than the I have to. If you live your whole life with I have to's, don't be surprised if you get to end of it, and you've made the wrong trade-offs because you didn't explore why you think you have to.
My friend, I knew this was going to be good, but you are crushing it. All right, let's get into this third step, execute. So now we've figured out what it is. We've eliminated some things. And now kind of real life is kicking in, and the obstacles. We had Dr. Wendy Wood on 6-8 months ago. We've got BJ Fogg coming up. They talk about this idea of decreasing the friction, so it makes the life that we're trying to do a little bit easier. It sounds like that's what you're talking about, is let's make these decisions a little bit easier. Is that on the right track?
Yeah. You mentioned BJ Fogg, and that really is one of my very favorite episodes. We had BJ Fogg on, and so I just walked him through, instead of saying, okay, BJ, you've written a great book, tell me about it. I said, okay, what's essential to you that you're underinvesting in? And we just did like an essential intervention instead. So we went through step 1, and it took a while of exploration because it's not obvious at first. You have to look underneath the first answer for a while. And what he finally identified was that he has a strong, strong desire, although he has not managed to do it, to move to a 4-day work week. Very strong. When I even suggested doing less than it, you could tell there was something in him, a tension that really wanted to get there, even though he's not been doing it. Okay, what's non-essential? We went through, it's work. It's that he's already done Stanford, his behavior lab there. So he's always had interesting work to do. But now, in addition to that, he has this successful book. And so now he's got all these extra requests. And so that's what it is. The problem is it's a good thing, but it just consumes it into Saturday, into Sunday, and really just isn't hardly a break. And when he says a 4-day work week, he means that he turns everything off. He wants to get to the point where everything's off for 3 days. Well, so then that moves to stage 3, execution. And I actually just turned it back to him. I said, okay, now I want you to walk us through how to use everything you've written about in your book, all the research you've done about, and real time right now, we're going to apply that to your problem and your situation. It was a really fun episode because we really were combining essentialism and tiny habits into a single real case. Yeah. Not here's how to ride a bike. We're just going to ride a bike together, tandem bike. Effortless means, for me, it means execution should be as effortless as possible. And effortless means to me that you do a thing even when you don't feel like doing it, even if you don't think about doing it. That's the ideal. At least one part of an ideal is that you've automated something. You don't want execution of what's essential to be dependent on your mood. You do not want what is most essential in your life to be dependent on your level of discipline in your life right now. Like, you don't want those dependencies because you're building a system that's going to fail for you. Your mood is going to shift. You are going to use up your discipline on some days doing other things. You're going to be tired sometimes. You need to try to build a system that makes execution as easy and effortless as possible so that it works on the bad days as well. And that's really the key mental shift, is away from make it happen, force it, occasional intermittent execution, which I think is what sort of behaviorally we tend to do, to consistent, calm, relaxed, paced, supported execution. So with him, just now that we're using him as an example, with him, it included things like working with his whole team and letting them know that this change was coming, but exactly specifically when he would be available and when he wouldn't. It included, before he leaves, having one final check-in, and it's building a whole plan. And what's great about it, though, I'm sort of jumping to the conclusion here of it, but what's great is he emailed me a week or so later to say he just had the first 4-day work week with a full 3 days off. And when he's on your show, ask him about it.
I will.
Because I've been told on other podcasts that he has in fact talked about it there, that he's doing it now which I think is a great way to keep him accountable, is he's getting lots of people around him to know about it, to help him to do it. And look at what's in his benefit here. Like he gets to actually live the life he wants to live. Yeah. He gets to design it. And 20 years from now, he's not going to regret that trade-off. He's not going to say, I wish I'd used my weekends to be on email. He's going to be glad he took the breaks. And maybe the greatest thing about this whole example is that it illustrates the value proposition of essentialism, which is that if you do a few things well, and then you create space for yourself to recuperate, to relax, to regroup, you actually end up doing better both professionally and personally. When he comes back on Monday fully refreshed, fully energized, that's beneficial. When he's gone and unplugged for 3 days, that's when insight comes. And everybody listening to this knows that's true. You get the big insights, not when you're crammed in the meeting, crammed doing email, crammed on Zoom calls. You get the insights when you're relaxed, when you're allowing your brain, like a slingshot to be you've got to pull back for a while and then spring forward.
Great example. So let's stay on this concept with the 4-day week, for example. So let's say we've got somebody that says, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to do. And they go through the process, they go through these steps and they downshift. And then they're sitting there for these 3 days going, what do I do with this time now? I'm not getting the dopamine response. I'm not getting because there's a reason a lot of us work so hard. We like what it gives us. So what do you say to that person that they make the shift and they won the shift and they decided this is essential and it is valuable. It will provide the returns. And then they get into it and they go, this is kind of weird. Maybe I'll just go back to what I was doing.
Yeah, relaxing is a responsibility. And for many overachievers, that's a responsibility they haven't taken seriously. And so they actually don't have the skill. And it sounds counterintuitive that one would need this to learn how to relax, but it's absolutely my experience.
No, it's absolutely true.
And your question presumes it too, doesn't it? That for a lot of overachievers, when they come even for half an hour where they're not plugged in, they feel guilty, they feel restless, and they just would prefer to at least look like they're doing stuff. So, get back on social media.
Are you talking to me?
I'm researching.
How'd you know?
and so it's one of the things I would recommend people do about this is to actually write down the answer to the question. Just take a minute to do it. What relaxes me? What do I actually feel relaxed doing? I can talk about the things that relax me. I like a lot getting my planner out, my journal, and really reviewing the day, what I was grateful for, writing all of this down. That's very cathartic for me to see the progress that's taken place, to be grateful in it, to download everything that's in my head, all the ideas I've had that day of what I could be doing, to look at the next day and prioritize it, to look back at my long-term goals and all that we were talking about. I find that relaxing. I like it. And I'd use a paper tool.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't want to do that in a digital format where you can just be so sucked into that draining experience. What else relaxes people? Does sitting in the hot tub talking to somebody relax you? Does reading a novel relax you? I've not been so into novels, but I've picked it up specifically as part of this relaxation education. And I find that's very helpful. Going on a walk, I go on a walk now with my wife for an hour a day, actually, and that's been the best investment. Mental investment, great for mental health, great for emotional health, physical health. We walk really briskly now. It's an hour outside in nature. It's great for our relationship, and we literally have moved to 7 days a week now because we notice the difference even on one day of not doing it. Wow. So. Yeah, for some people it's taking a bath or going to play tennis or what, you've got to construct what relaxes you, what feels enjoyable that you look forward to doing, and you can construct a ritual every night to work on that. Have a time when external work ends. And then when you move into relaxation, into these rituals, there's no sneaking in the emails, no sneaking in a bit of research while you're in the bath. Oh, I'm just going to do, oh, but I
just
need
checking
to do a little more. We got to try and shift away from all of that and develop these rituals. So I have a very set time for ending my day. It's 5 p.m. Like that's original. But I literally walk out my office and call it out to the whole family. It is 5 o'clock, whatever exactly the time.
Daddy has returned.
and I mean, we do all sorts of things through the day. We have other rituals too, but that end time. And then even with my wife, Anna, who I just had on the show just this last Monday, talking about some of these principles of disciplined relaxation and what we're struggling with and what we're learning. It gives an excuse to end at that time. Why not 5:30? Why not and then 6 o'clock? And if it's not 6, then it might be 7 and 8 and 9. And sometimes I think for a lot of professionals right now, they don't know what day it is, and they don't know what time of day it is, and they look at their Fitbit at the end of the day, it's 300 steps. Just merging into it within the Zoom world.
Right.
Eat, sleep, Zoom. And I think that constructing boundaries followed by relaxation rituals is really important for peak performance.
All right, we're not going to get to all these questions I wanted to ask you, but let's hit a couple of these extreme criteria. You touched on this a little bit, but can you dive into this concept a little bit more, how to apply it and where we can go from there?
Well, essentialism is written for people who are successful and that success is getting in the way of greater success.
Right.
And so you're going to plateau at whatever level of success equals your criteria for saying yes. So if you say yes to X number of things, right? You have space for 10 things, and you're saying yes to these 10 things. There is no space left for anything else now. If you're satisfied with that level of contribution, if you feel like this is what I want to do, that's great. You don't need to change your criteria at all. Just keep doing it. But if you say, well, I would like to go to the next level of contribution, but I'd like to do it in a way that I don't burn out, then you've got to, of absolute necessity, become more selective. You need to become more selective so you have space to figure out what the next level of contribution is, in the way we've talked about with planning and space to design. But you also need to create space just for there to be room for something new to come into your life. And if you're saying yes to simply everything, then there's no room to either discover the next level or to then pursue it. I had another great guest that said, that had on the person who first coined the term FOMO, the fear of missing out, Patrick McGinnis. And he taught a principle around being a 10% entrepreneur, so that you have your main thing, but that you carve out 10% of time for the next thing that will really help you get to the next level of whatever you're trying to achieve. And I think that's an excellent description. Sometimes people have a very take it or leave it. Well, either I pursue my dream or I stay steady in my current career. Right. Well, how about you pursue it 10% of the time?
Totally.
How about you reclaim 10% from the wasted time, and now you go after one thing that's the next thing for you, and you invest in that. So that's I think a concrete example. Yeah,
that's beautiful. And that's kind of the old 3M strategy with all their intrapreneurialism that took effect. All right, the no repertoire. My friend, that was so practical. I think that's a struggle everybody has with, as you said, you kind of hit the plateau where you keep saying yes, and you give us a way to say no. Can you hit a couple of those highlights for folks that have struggled with that?
Which chapter is that, just for my...
That is, I've got page 140, 142, so I don't have a chapter for you, but you walk through that process of how you can say no more effectively with all the things you're being asked.
I mean, the first thing is just to recognize that, like relaxation, high performers often got where they have got by saying yes. There is reward for saying yes and delivering on it. But the risk is exactly what I just described, which is the plateauing problem, where you consume all of your time and energy saying yes to the current level of opportunities instead of being able to carve out the time for the others. So we have got to learn the skill of saying no. It's as learned as any other skill, the skill of listening or the skill of giving presentations. You have to learn how to say no. And I mean, among them, one of my favorite is simply the awkward pause, which I'm just joking slightly about the awkward. But just when somebody asks you something, before you just jump in with an instantaneous yes, you just pause. Even like literally 3 seconds, just count it. Just do the think about that. Sometimes in that pause, people will fill it with all sorts of interesting things. That little awkward pause, like, well, I guess it isn't really that important right now. This is why I was thinking about it. You can gather a lot of information in the pause. And you're just allowing them to fill it. The pause also allows everything else that's in the no repertoire to take place only happens because of a pause. So that's still the first thing. In the pause, you can ask a question. But just asking a question like, well, is what you're asking me to do more important than the thing I'm currently working on? Like, is it? Let's just talk about that for a second. I'm really interested in what you're saying. It sounds really worthy. Is it? How would that prioritize against what I'm doing here? No repertoire might include sort of the soft no or the no on the no, but it's no, I can't do this right now, but reach out, check in with me again.
Right.
In a couple of months, even. I've had somebody do that to me recently. They did it twice. And I'm quite curious about it because they responded to my email instantly with I can't do it right now. I'm just really busy. Check back in with me in 2 months. Well, I did check in with them 2 months later, and they basically said the same thing again. And I thought to myself, it's quite a clever approach to a soft no. You're responding quickly. So you're making somebody feel like I'm here. I'm not just ignoring you, but there's no way I can do it. And it puts it back on me. They don't have an action item.
Right.
The action item is with
if
me
it's important
to follow
to you.
Up with them.
Yeah.
If it's important to me, I can come back. Well, I did come back. Well, they did it again. Well, now I'm like, oh, okay. They probably don't want to do it. Fine. I get the idea. But again, they still, I thought it was kind of a clever no. Let me check my calendar and get back to you.
I like that
I
one.
love this one. This, not because it's a good, clever line. You go check your calendar.
Right.
And see what you've already got and remind yourself that the request they're making or the request that even the idea you have, which is often where a lot of our tasks come from just from within, check it against what you're already committed to. Think about whether it's more important than the thing that you have in front of you. Well, there we go. Something on the no repertoire.
Perfect. All right. Second to last question here. You had a great differentiation between the two Greek words for time, chronos and kairos. Why is this such an important concept to reference in this process?
Chronos refers to the clock, the ticking clock, its efficiency, its time as urgency, as fast as you're late and you feel it. The other kind of time is still and timeless. And we're lost in this moment. And one of the reasons I think the distinction matters so much is because Essentialism and the new book that I just finished, I haven't been talking about it very publicly, but the book's called Effortless.
Oh, beautiful.
What I've learned really in writing the second book is that it's about lifestyle. It's not just about doing the important thing or not doing the important thing. It's what life feels like as you're doing it. And there are different ways to go about it. You could choose the right thing and still go about it, I think, in the wrong, stressed way. I can think of so many examples, but I could say, okay, I'm going to have dinner with my family. That really matters, and I do. But how do I show up to it? What kind of experience do I have? Or how about this, cleaning up after dinner? That's important. it's important that my children help for that, because for all sorts of reasons, practical reasons, but also for their developmentally. I'm not interested in sending off spoiled children into the world. I mean,
thank you.
So, yeah, that's you're welcome. And so how do you construct an experience that makes that fun and enjoyable, and that the experience actually is matching the level of importance? And so we've gone through all sorts of iterations to try and get closer to that experience. For us, it looks like dividing up the roles, responsibilities. It looks like training. It looks like putting on, for us, Disney classics loud, so we all sing along, kind of dance our way.
That's through. A great strategy.
It's really, at first our efforts were like, we thought they would work and they didn't, but all the efforts together, all the sort of the design of the system meant that once we added that one thing, one of our oldest daughter had the idea, and once we added that element, it just worked. And so I'm not saying it works perfectly all the time, but I am saying it is genuinely much more enjoyable than it used to be. People do it and it works. I mean, it's done, within sort of 15 minutes, everything is back in place. Everything is clean. People don't fight it hard. You don't have to wrestle people too hard, because they know that's their job, and it's been their job for weeks and now months. And so you just all know what each other are doing, and you're not having to reinvent it every day or be left on your own to do all the cleanup, which I think is the other default position. So anyway, that's an example.
Beautiful. I want to be respectful of your time. This was so good. We'll just wrap it up there. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Love it. Definitely want to check into your stuff. Again, the best way for people to find you at this second is gregmckeown.com, but coming, it'll be essentialism.com. Is that right?
They can just go to essentialism.com.
It'll roll them over.
But what they'll find there will change over time as we're rolling out these new things.
Perfect. My friend, fantastic job. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into the #1 podcast for health and wellness coaching. It is an honor to have you spend a few minutes of your week with us. The next MBHWSC approved health and wellness coach certification is just around the corner. If you've been considering adding coaching to your professional toolbox, or maybe it's a springboard into a new career pursuit, please reach out anytime. Results at catalystcoaching360.com, or feel free to visit our Training Institute website at catalystcoachinginstitute.com. That's catalystcoachinginstitute.com. Now it's time to be that catalyst. This is Catalyst Coaching 360's Dr. Brad Cooper. Make it a great rest of your week, and I'll speak with you soon on the next episode of the Catalyst 360 podcast, or maybe over on the YouTube coaching channel.